So we're going to start things off with Neo X Tricks again. Man, Max, you really got a thing for this guy, right? Well, I like great researchers. Maybe he's like the Quant Papa of Jasmy. I don't know. That's a good compliment, right? Shout out to Quant Papa. All right, jumping right into it. I'll come back into the frame. Let's take a look into some of this, okay? So we, of course, have this outline. I want to get into some key things here. So one thing I want to have resonate in your noggin is basically what? Come on, you guys know where we're going with this. What was the topic of yesterday? Sony, right? We were talking about yesterday in regards to specifically what, guys? Come on, do you remember? Do you remember? Hopefully you remember. What was the big deal the other day? You guys forgot, didn't you? You freaking forgot. Well, it was Sora Mitsu, right? Almost sounds like a Mitsubishi Eclipse or something, right? Not the same thing. So, again, key thing here is basically Sony. I like some of the key findings that he brought to us, and if anything, I'm going to blow it up more for you. And I want to show you guys this specifically. So, number one, you see some key things here, and we'll get into it. But I like how Neo X Tricks mentions that, for instance, Kazumasa Sato, CEO of Jasmy, had no knowledge in genetic engineering, cellular, and biology in general. Also, that he couldn't be responsible at Sony and do research on the side. A genius is a genius, and it's a good read, right? This is basically Neo X Tricks quoting somebody that was just like, this is a nothing burger. But it's not a nothing burger. So as you see here, and this is blown up even more just to put some emphasis on a few key things. Kazumasa Sato research while affiliated with Sony Corporation and other places. You know how many times we reference some of his patents? Well, how about that thing about blood coagulation system, analyzing method and blood coagulation system with the analyzing device. Patent basically back in April of 2015. Goes on to reference again what you see here. Dielectric cytometric apparatus and dielectric cytometric cell sorting method. Why go through all this trouble if it's just a nothing burger? No. Continuously has patents that's going to contribute to this new concept of a new society. That's the bottom line, is it not? Jumping back to what we have, I want to show you guys this. IBM. Now you may be wondering, what the heck does that have to do with anything? It has a lot to do with a lot of things, because this is a new report from IBM. How does it have anything to do with Jasmy? That's a great question. We'll get into that. States, uniting IBM technology and Amazon Web Services scalability. That shouldn't be another key thing you should remember on tonight's outline. Scalability. Remember we did a recent piece not that long ago? Jasmy, quant, scalability solved, right? Well, it says planning analytics on software as a service. And again, think about how many times Jasmy's referenced in regards to software as a service. On AWS is your path to a managed integrated business planning and analysis solution. Forecast gain, agility, tackle silos. How many times do we reference Gilbert Verdian and the walled gardens and the silos of the industry of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies? Now, the point I'm trying to make here is a combination of a few things. Interoperability, SaaS, which is software as a service, but especially IBM. Who does IBM, consistently use? Well, Hyperledger Fabric. Who have they been partnered with? Key blockchain projects that have Hyperledger Fabric. Who uses Hyperledger Fabric? Well, we know Jasmy does. There's also Casper. There's some other ones. Okay. Jumping more into our outline tonight, I want to show you guys another thing. This is basically like a part 2, if you will. And that is this right here. Data Chain and Sora-Mitsu, they successfully, basically speaking, achieve interoperability between Hyperledger, Iroha blockchains for simultaneous exchange of different digital currencies. Now, this is a while back, referenced back in April 20th of 2022, but based on what we presented yesterday, check this out. We get more into this, Data Chain, Sora-Mitsu, but the key thing is Hyperledger, right? And we mentioned the talk about what we shared earlier or yesterday in regards to Hyperledger, but numerous times we talked about the concepts of Hyperledger for interoperability and so on. Goes on to mention this demo, goes on to mention even IBC, goes on to also specifically mention some other key things about this primary use case in the simultaneous exchange of different digital currencies. And that is what I want you to pay attention to tonight, because if anything, if you have a firm understanding with the research that we presented numerous times, it's going to get incredibly more bullish. Now, on yesterday's show, and I know I haven't put out the video yet on the chopped up version yet, but I will. Just double check my settings. So yesterday, we showed you that quote from a few key things from that pamphlet of the BIS, right? Bank of International Settlements. How about this for a whopper? Corda. Remember how we always talking about R3 and Corda? Yeah, it gets better, right? Like Billy Mays would always say. But wait, there's more. So in recent years, like it says right here, there's been plenty of developments around digital currencies. For example, many municipalities in Japan already offering digital currencies. And Osaka Super City is also considering introducing digital currencies. I like how it's mentioned as Osaka Super City. Now, sometimes there's literally innuendos or there's subliminal messages. And I'm not trying to make things sound like a conspiracy here, but whether it's Gilbert Verdin and his subliminal messages that he puts out continuously, especially referencing Back to the Future, Quant Papa's watching, he knows exactly what I'm talking about here. But again, Osaka Super City, Jasmy Super Wallet. I know some people are saying, no, that's a stretch. You think I would just mention any of this stuff without connecting? Hear me out. Various blockchains such as Iroha and Corda, yes, you read it right, Corda, are used as the platform for these digital currencies. Yeah, true. But therefore, there is a growing need for PvP settlement among different digital currencies by interconnecting multiple Iroha and Iroha heterogeneous blockchains. In the future, we will also support interoperability with different blockchains, such as Corda, to realize a world where various digital currencies and local currencies are connected. Now, I know this is a Jasmy statement, but I also want to state this. Recently, and it didn't get much views because maybe it just, didn't say something like 10,000x or 1,000x or something like that. But if you've been watching the last 2 quant videos, it's been some really big, huge information in regards to quant, but especially that last video when we referenced R3 with Corda, and we talked about, for instance, some key things with there, right? Like finality and so on, and if anything, why all of that matters, right? It matters because we are going from the stage of, old legacy or enterprise solutions to enabling interoperability with those old solutions, which sounds crazy. Or how about this? Scalability with those old solutions. Hear me out. Look at this. In this overview, it says since the beginning of this technological collaboration that existed all the way back in November 2021, Data Chain and Sora-Mitsu, and again, yesterday we talked about Sora-Mitsu, former Sony executives just like Jasmy, have jointly promoted efforts to achieve interoperability for Iroha and one of the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger projects, which was initially contributed by who? Sora-Mitsu. Now, this gets really, really good here in a bit. And again, check this out. For these efforts, DataChain and Sora admits to have successfully connected multiple blockchains for interoperability built on Aroha. Now, again, keep in mind another portion or showcase, if you will, in regards to Hyperledger Fabric. There's Hyperledger Bisu, there's Fabric, right? But it says technically they use UE IBC Solidity, and that's an implementation of IBC. I'm not going to get into a big deep dive about IBC, but we covered that in the past as well. The cool thing here is this thing called Hyperledger Lab YUI, and it's got an interoperability project led by DataChain. And on top of that, everybody's saying, you always say on top of that, Max. Well, they even say it, right? They implemented ICS 20, which is a standard, and listen to this, that defines token transfer in IBC. Why do we need token transfer for some of these things that were mentioned here earlier? Well, last I checked, with the domestic and even foreign stable coins, that's going to be a big, big deal by when? 2024 for these stable coins, especially for Japan. Going more into this, it states that Aroha has this thing in regards to this Web3 gateway implementation to support Web3 API. Who's big on APIs? Well, let's face it, Quant. Is this a Quant segment or not, Max? Well, you could basically kind of maybe do that thing from before. Quant and Jasmy. Jasmy and Quant, whatever you want to call it. But the key thing, again, that I want to mention is some of the findings from yesterday and linking it and giving you a little bit more today, because it's a really, really big deal. All right, check this out for a second, and it's going to flow nicely here in a bit. Hyperledger Aroha, right? Use cases. Were you aware that they already put into this practical use of the following? Now, yesterday I talked about Bakong. I'm not getting that today, but Bakong is the CBDC in the Kingdom of Cambodia. If you're wondering where Cambodia is, it's basically on the border, right next, I believe, west of Vietnam, right? You have, for instance, this digital toku gift certificate, a digital gift certificate of Bandai Cho Fukushima Prefecture. But what specifically? What country? Japan. A little bit more about this. And here, now you might see where we're going with this. Digital gift certificate with Toyonan Premium. Digital gift certificate for Osaka Toyona Cho Smart City. Smart City. Interesting, right? Society 5.0, smart cities. What was referenced up above here earlier that we just talked about? Did you remember what I just mentioned? I hope you do. What did it specifically mention, guys? Smart? No? Super city. Boom. Super city, smart city. Where's Max going with this? Is this a big, giant coincidence? Well, hear me out. So when we get more into this, it goes into this initiative. Osaka Prefecture, government to achieve a public-private, and listen to this part, partnership to realize a super city. Yeah, super city that will include the introduction of a digital currency using LIDA, a digital currency issuing software as a service platform built using Aroha. Remember how I said it's not one specific project, it's going to be a collaboration. So the key thing that you should take away from this is interoperability through this whole concept, especially with Hyperledger, right? The key underlying factors of more than one project being on Hyperledger, but not just that, right? All these contributors towards Society 5.0, right? Super cities, smart cities, SaaS, software as a service platform or platforms. In addition, because we're always talking about this all the time in regards to stablecoins, they have defined an electronic means of payment by the working group of fund settlement on the Financial System Council. The Payment Services Act, also remember that. and related laws and regulations are expected to be amended by as early as 2023. Then you guys get tired of me saying, remember this, remember that. Something I've naturally done as a teacher, even in the classroom, even in college instruction. I always say, remember this, remember that, because I mean, I always had my students taking notes, and I always say, hey, remember this. Anyway, not that you guys are taking notes. Maybe some of you guys are, but that's okay. This has led Mitsubishi UFJ Trust and Banking Corporation to announce Progmat Coin. Now, remember in a while back, I think it was maybe Dip Metaverse or could have been Icy Amphibian. I can't remember. Somebody mentioned Progmat Coin. And if you remember that, that's a big deal in itself. And again, that's a whole big deep dive, and I'm not going to get into that. But check this out. It's an infrastructure just on the surface, if you want the quick gist, that enables the issuance and management of just that, stable coins. All right. So again, multiple platforms, multiple things to get the job done. Now, I know it seems like there's quite a bit, but man, I'm telling you flat out, if you watched yesterday's show, then you might, appreciate this. If you didn't watch yesterday's show, you can always go back. We are going to give you the chopped up version that's all condensed, that we normally do. Again, I'm falling behind on that, but I will get that one guaranteed out tonight, probably after the show. And if anything, it'll be ready to watch like in the morning your time, right? Especially you guys on the East Coast. But the cool thing about this, it says, in regards to this, the digital currency DCJPY, tentative name promoted by the Digital Currency Forum, basically allowed for this 74 major Japanese companies that are participating and also under consideration. Now, you like that statement in itself, do you not? Do you know where I'm going with this? The 74 major Japanese companies. Now, some people say, well, Jasmy's not one of them. We didn't get an official response from that. Again, what is the point here? The point is this, connecting the dots in regards to this and respecting the idea of NDAs. I know some people don't like that, right? But if we have learned anything, we have learned the importance when it comes to NDAs. Perfect example is Quant, right? Remember everything that seems speculative at the end of the year and at the beginning of this year, so end of 2022 going into 2023. I got so much criticism and hate from a few key people in regards to Project Hamilton and Project Icebreaker. Oh, it's speculative. And then we end up getting confirmation when it came to the Bank of International Settlements, the Bank of England, right? Project Rosalind. And then literally hearing from the horse's mouth, Mr. Augustine of the BIS, yeah, we're using Quant's Overledger. I mean, say what you want. That's how it is sometimes, guys. And if you've been following this stuff long enough, you understand that all it takes is to be a key player of the 74 without even officially stating, quote unquote, Jasmy. There's a lot of things that have been presented here already for the last few days, and not just the last few days, but let's face it, here at CTN for many, many months. And that is this, putting emphasis on Hyperledger, putting emphasis on, some of these key things from Japanese denominated stablecoins, putting emphasis on data free flow with trust. Do you get where I'm going with this? I hope you do. As these digital currency related activities accelerate and the circulation of digital currencies go into full swing, the need for simultaneous exchange between different digital currencies, PvP settlement, will increase. That's why we always pay attention to what's going on with like Ripple's XRP, Stellar's XLM, even Trade Sector, right? Especially that with XDC. Data Chain and Soramitsu see this kind of exchange between digital currencies and local digital currencies as a major use case. And who has been talking about local digital currencies for at least the last few months, bringing it to you guys consistently when it comes to, hey, check out what's going on with Japan, and especially when it comes to, was it MUFG, I believe it is. It's a working group, a bank in regards to Mitsubishi and that fund that was connected, for instance, to Jasmy, heavily connected to Jasmy, and that's a domestic bank, right? This doesn't say domestic bank, but at the same time, it means the same thing. Local digital currencies, right? Between some of the other things we mentioned earlier, local stable coins. You get where I'm going with this? All right. Future plans. Data chain, Soramitsu, aim to apply Iroha to specific use cases. Going further down, in addition to that, data chain, Soramitsu, expand use cases by supporting interoperability with heterogeneous blockchain infrastructure such as Corda. again, even if you're not a person that's into quant, you're just a Jasmy fan, I would highly recommend checking out the last deep dive video, quant, the R3 thing going on, finality, right? What's the project? LAX something, lax, whatever. Not. Excuse me. Sometimes it's hard to remember all this stuff. Not LAC chain, but that other one. How about this? They also released the modules and other components and implemented this effort as OSS. They will consider upstream to Roha in the future, again, to Hyperledger. So bottom line is this: why make so much of a big deal about this YUI, right? And especially, of course, Hyperledger Labs. Well, for one, Hyperledger Labs, or Hyperledger in general, especially Besu, Fabric, all that, isn't like a one-stop shop for one specific thing, is it not? Hyperledger Labs, including UI, achieves interoperability between multiple heterogeneous blockchain platforms through IBC. As YUI adopts IBC, it enables different blockchains. I want you to pay attention to this part. And if you are one of the few nerds out there who actually does take my notes for whatever reason, I mean, you're awesome for doing that. The key thing you want to take from this is this right here. It enables different blockchains to do what? To communicate with each other without requiring trust in any third-party intermediaries. Doesn't that sound very familiar? You know, when we talk about, like Quant's OVERLEDGER, right? Not having to use third-party intermediaries. Doesn't that kind of make you think, I see where Max is going with this. You better believe you understand where I'm going with this, because again, remember roughly February, March 2022, that big update for Hyperledger Fabric for Quant's OVERLEDGER platform was a huge, huge, huge deal. So some people from the content creator community want to bash me on my findings. At the end of the day, are they watching the whole video, or are they just taking 5 minutes off the top and saying that I made everything up? Draw your own conclusion. As the saying goes, do we read books, just little bits and pieces of it? I don't know about you, but I read a book from the beginning to the end. It may take a while, but I read it from the beginning to the end, right? There's some dramatic things that happen at the beginning. And guess what? At the end, you come to a different conclusion, right? The story may start off like, one direction. And by the end, it goes to a different narrative. You get what I'm saying? Not only does YUI support, and listen to this, Hyperledger Roha, and I love this next part, but it also Ethereum and other major enterprise blockchains such as Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Besu, and Corda. Now, without even saying Quant, who is the one that supports all of this? And we confirm this. It's Quant's OVERLEDGER. Yes, even with R3 and Corda. We established that literally the other night. The CEO from Corda, or I should say from R3, even specifically referenced that quote from Ethereum and how it was a mistake. Again, even if you're not even a guy that's like, oh, I don't like Quant. I'm all Jasmy all the way, beat my chest for Jasmy. Okay, I hear you. But at the end of the day, we provide you not just news, but we give you educational content. That's a big deal on that, guys. I'm telling you flat out. That was a great finding. That video only got like 400 views. That video should have like 10,000 views if a person understood just what the heck's going on in the background. But to each his own, It's one of the frustrating things that we have here at CTN. We were so grateful for the community that we have. I've had other people tell me, Max, you should have way more views on your videos. You should have way more of a following. It is what it is. I'm grateful. At the end of the day, I'm grateful for opportunities that I'm given. I'm grateful for a lot of things, man. I count my blessings. I count them one by one. Count your many blessings. See what God has done, right? All right, look at this. It seems like a lot, right? So what is Hyperledger Aroha? We talked about that earlier, okay? And I know this seems like a lot of material, but man, is it really good material, okay? Hyperledger Aroha has released as a blockchain platform from where? Not Cambodia, not from, Ethiopia, not from, South Africa, but from Japan, right? And is now used worldwide as an OSS by the Linux Foundation. By the Linux Foundation. Interesting. It is not only used for financial applications in digital currencies such as CBDCs in the Kingdom of Cambodia, right? Remember that other project we talked about, right? But it's also for blockchain apps such as, and look at this, here's some of that juicy stuff, digital ID and traceability due to its features such as easy management of assets. Who is trying to solve some of this as we speak and building on some of this as we speak? So as well, some people say, I haven't seen anything confirmed from both projects. This is a giant, humongous nothing burger, Max. Right. I hear where you're coming from. But want to know something? All of these are contributing to Society 5.0, are they not? The key is basically working together through interoperability, working together through technology with a clear common ground consensus. Hyperledger. That's the key thing. How do people not quite understand that? I don't understand how people just can't grasp that. Look at this. Provision of a library for what? Who? Yeah. Mobile app development and easy integration into what? Yeah. IoT devices. It doesn't have to say Jasmy. It doesn't have to say Quant. It doesn't have to say a lot of things. It may just say Hyperledger. But if I know my research, and I've done it, by God, I've done it, I could freaking connect it just as much as anybody else. And you can connect it too if you've been paying attention. All right. I'm not going to get into all of this, right? These last two things. That's basically it. Oh, man, there's some good stuff tonight. So I'm going to blow up the next part a little bit bigger. Check this out. This was from August 17th of 2021. All right. And it kind of reiterates some key things I mentioned, but I don't want to get into all of it. But what I love is what's consistently mentioned in regards to Japan, right? Japan prepared many, many years ago for all of this, right? Hyperledger was first developed, were you aware of this, by Japanese startup Soramitsu. I was not aware of that, right? I'll be honest, I was not aware of that. So my thing is this. When you hear Jasmy, some people say, why did they pick Hyperledger? Why wouldn't they pick Hyperledger? Again, where you're located, who you're connected to. Former Sony executives from Jasmy, Soramitsu, former Sony executives. Jasmy, Hyperledger, Soramitsu, Hyperledger, Soramitsu, Society 5.0, Jasmy, Society 5.0. Again, understanding the bigger picture here. How about this? This was donated to the project and is being vigorously developed by developers around the world as an open source, right? An open source platform. Anyone can learn about Hyperledger. Last I checked, Japan wants to be what? Transparent. They always have been transparent. They might not have the best marketing, but they try to be transparent. All right, check out some more juicy stuff. You know how we're always talking about, for instance, Swift and IS, are they going to use ISO 222 and all this stuff, right? Well, look at this. Hyperledger project was launched in December 2015 by 20 companies around the world, including the big players. Oh, I know why Max referenced IBM earlier. Yeah. Why would I just, here's IBM. Here's this cool thing. I'm trying to sound cool. No. Including IBM. That's why he referenced IBM. Intel. Remember yesterday I talked about Intel? Remember how I mentioned E-Day? The Eye of E-Day from Soramitsu, right? this former, the former Sony executive that did work with Sorimitsu, right? Ide, excuse me. He is the eye of Intel. I mean, how cool is that? We point out all these cool things from Jasmy and a recent, was it PlayStation logo creator partnered up with Jasmy, and then we talked about the other guy who I forgot his name, but he literally invented the Sony PlayStation. I mean, are we not getting a lot of bullish news just by doing proper research, whether it's from a few years ago or whether it's right now? Look at this. JP Morgan, yes, Swift, led by the Linux Foundation, in order to promote blockchain tech that can be used for nonprofit, is a project launched in May, established in 30 companies by February 9, 2016. At the time of establishment, from Japan, Fujitsu, Hitachi, NTT Data, NEC are participating. I don't know if any of you guys remember when I linked some of these in the past with Jasmy? Remember I talked about some of those deep dives? Anyway, some people remember, some people don't. It's okay. Since then, many companies and organizations have participated. There are more than 200 members. And it does get better. The projects adopted by Hyperledger project started, of course, with Fabric, Sawtooth, Aroha. Currently, there's 6 that have been adopted as blockchain frameworks. There's Besu, Burrow, Fabric, of course, that Jasmy uses, Indy, Aroha, Sawtooth. And here's a breakdown in the entire, collection of all these specific technologies. And if you're wondering, like, I don't understand what Fabric means, I'm new. That's enterprise-grade DLT with privacy support. Privacy support! Jasmy is data democracy, protecting you and your data by privatizing in a what? A PDL, right? A personal private data locker. That's why they picked Hyperledger Fabric, everybody. Now, what about Aroha, though? Right? Well, that's mobile application focused, right? That's their focus. That's the key thing. The super wallet coming out. Do you get where I'm going with all this? I don't know if people do. That super wallet, I mean, I don't know about you. I'm going to use my super wallet on my phone. I mean, maybe there's another way of using it, but I'm going to use it with my phone, Well, that would involve Hyperledger Aroha. So again, I think that's a big deal. All right. This last part down here. This is good stuff. Hyperledger project. The above project is actually listed as distributed ledgers instead of blockchain. Distributed ledgers instead of blockchain. What is a top DLT solution, right? Well, a couple of them. Obviously, Hyperledger. But the key thing is, again, with Quant's OVERLEDGER, right? Distributed ledger technologies, interoperability. DLT is a method in which many participants in a distributed system share the same ledger. As with blockchain, many participants share the same information to prevent attacks such as tampering and ensure the reliability of information written on the ledger. The same ledger is distributed and stored on multiple participating computers, and the written blocks are connected in a chain structure. Right? We all know this. That's the whole concept of why this is all beautiful. I'm not going to get into all of this, right? But I'm going to get down to this bottom area, and that is where it states domestic and international examples. Bakong. Yesterday, we talked specifically about, and I joked about it, I know. Bakong, right? This kind of sounds fun. But the Bank of Cambodia and the University of Aizu, right? They, for instance, have implemented some of these things. And when we go more into it, it mentions here that these are being used both domestically and internationally, right? That is a big deal. And the use case is shown in the following figure. Well, let's take a look at that following figure. Among them, the Kong of the National Bank of Cambodia has been jointly developed with Sorimitsu Limited of Japan since March of 2017 and the world's first central bank digital currency, CBDC, from the 28th of May back then, have joined 24 banks that are in preparation, and it has officially started operation. Where are they using? Hyperledger. That's interesting. What have we also seen lately with Jasmy? Teaming up with many what? Domestic banks. Specifically where? in Japan. For what? Japanese yen denominated stablecoins. Remember how you saw the whole talk of, I don't know, various different blockchain projects and their CEOs? And it mentions that, a CBDC is the pathway forward for initializing the banks. Jasmy has branched out. Instead of just data democratization, what was the newest report we got? Do you remember that? It's okay if you don't. Basically speaking, breaking into financial democratization, right? Finance democracy is what they called it. Everything we're mentioning here is in regards to what? That industry. Look what's also mentioned here. And remember, it's not just one getting the job done. It's many of these ones. Last I checked, it's not that Jasmy has to be the one and only, but they're all contributing to Society 5.0 entry points. Well, if we have multiple layers of entry points, wouldn't it make sense to have a layer 0 through Polkadot? Yeah, Polkadot is referenced here. Interesting. All right, I want to show you some key things about this. Bakong, used by 16 million people to send money by phone and to pay at stores with QR code, even now has become useful as a countermeasure against the corona disaster, and the range of its use is expanding. But the key thing also in this, interoperability, right? And the key thing also is if 16 million people have used it to send money by phone to pay at stores with QR, and all this is interoperable, that's really, really big. Because it tells you if you hold Jasmy, and later on, when we get more of that full implementation, mass adoption of data lockers in use, and having it, paired up with, like, for instance, Japanese yen denominated stablecoins, but the person literally travels, for instance, from Japan over to Cambodia, and that person uses it for a transaction with Bakong, right? They all talk to each other. Interoperability. Utility and data, for that matter, will still be in motion. This is an amazing, awesome thing that flew under the radar, in my opinion. Glad to bring it to you guys. Look at this. In addition, utilization, again, can't make this stuff up. I literally said utilization, as a digital community currency is also being promoted in Japan. And from July 1st, 2020, the operation of the campus digital currency Bayako started at the University of Aizu in Fukushima Prefecture. At the University of Aizu, you can Bayako all your mobile devices in cafeterias and shops and campuses. There's more to this. Remember we talked about that gift certificate earlier? A couple years ago, they came up with this digital regional currency. And again, remember that. Digital regional currency, because if anything, it sounds just like the other terminology, right? Local banks, local currencies, again, but digitalized in regional areas. All right, so again, the whole concept of that digital certificate or that gift certificate. Remember, I did mention that earlier. Bandai Town, Fukushima Prefecture says because of the 25% premium, it sells out early on the day of sale, and many elderly people can also buy and use it. Remember how we always talk about the older generation? They don't have any concept of what blockchain is. They don't know what the distributed ledger technologies are. Maybe there's a small minority of them that like want to learn more about it and so on. But for the some of these really elderly people, they may have possibly heard of Bitcoin. But in Japan, they may have possibly heard of what? The Bitcoin of Japan, Jasmy. It says in this way, Hyperledger Roha, a Japanese blockchain, is used in a wide range of use cases in Japan and overseas. Look at this. For the first time, they have looked at the overview examples of Hyperledger Roha, which is the foundation of blockchain. Blockchain interoperability foundation? My God, right? So here's this guy. He's part of the research and development organization. He is Takeshi Yonezu. And I love his background, guys. Look at this. You know how many times we talked about Swift over the last year and a half or so? In his previous job, do you know that he was in charge of system infrastructure such as SWIFT? He was part of Bank of Japan. He was also part of like this right here as a financial settlement system. Since 2016, he's been working on blockchain architect at Sora Mitsu, mainly providing education and training for Hyperledger Roja. So again, guys, you got to keep in mind, you're trying to tell me that the bigger players from Jasmy, right? Kunitaki Ando, Kazumasa Sato especially, and maybe even Hara, right? He gets a lot of criticism. You better believe that there's some smart guys that are part of that bunch, especially Sato. Let's face it, creating patents and so on. You better believe these guys, in my opinion, even though there's been nothing verified, right, are rubbing elbows, talking to each other and so on. And my key thing is this: even if we never get verification of that, what have we discovered here recently? Interoperability through Hyperledger, and if anything, even with Quant's OVERLEDGER for full scale scalability, I should say. That's absolutely huge beyond all measure. And of course, like from yesterday, remember we talked about Sony. Again, Sony. All these guys tied into everything. And if you were wondering also about if Max is he just loves to talk about Quant and Jasmy. Nobody else is doing this. I don't know about this guy. There's probably somebody listening saying, man, I don't know about this Max guy. I'm really on the cusp of just like unsubscribing because you know what? This just seems like a bunch of bull. I'm with you, man. I'd be right there with you. So here we go. Here's the juiciest of the juicy. Who created the ISO TC307 standard? The inception of it back in 2015. Right, Gilbert Verdian of the Quant Network. And then when it was implemented, 2016. Are you ready for the boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew, potatoes? Look at this. This guy that we just referenced, he joined Sorimitsu after working manager, executive officer, operating company BitWallet, and executive officer of Rakuten ED. He is a lecturer in management systems at the Tokyo Institute of Technology and a member of what? A member of who? A member of what? Are you not looking at the screen? Are you talking about Caroline and stuff? ISO TC307 Blockchain International Standardization Committee in freaking Japan. Boil it, mash it, stick it in the stew. I don't come up and freaking make crap up and pull it out of thin air. I find that deep dive stuff, for crying out loud. I've been talking about this and everybody's like, man, this is so speculative. Man, I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I apologize. But you want to know something? That's what I'm talking about. Freaking Bellwether wants to say that I'm full of crap. You cannot deny that, man. You go look it up. I invited you to come on our show, for crying out loud, man. And you were trying to say that I made this stuff up. I did not make it up. You can look it up for yourself right there. Who created that? Gilbert Verdian. Sorry, I know someone yelling. I used to be part of Debate Club. And I miss stuff like that, man. But yeah, just in case you missed it, ISO TC307 Blockchain International Standardization Committee in Japan. There's your plug. There's your connect. I don't think I ever gotten that into this, doing this type of research, to be honest. Anyway, that's it. That's it. I mean, that's the end of the Jasmy Quant coverage. All that time, people were saying that it's just speculative. ISO TC307, the Quant Standard by Gilbert Verdian.